Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on this rather chilly winter morning. We are the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Lower Bucks, and I'm your lay leader this morning, Gil Christenberry. So welcome. Welcome to this congregation where we have been seeking to foster community, to grow our spirits, to serve others, and to work for justice, and we've been doing it for over half a century now. We are very glad that you are joining us in our sacred cyberspace, and hope that here you will experience love, acceptance, and hopefully inspiration. After our service, please feel welcome to join us for fellowship and conversation. Our monthly Touchstones theme for January is renewal, which is a necessity built into the fabric of life. Renewal is one aspect of the repair of the world, our annual theme for this church year. Winter fallowness is a process of renewal giving birth to another springtime. Whether we relax, rest, or sleep, renewal should be the result. When it is not, more is needed physically, mentally, emotionally, and or spiritually to return us to wholeness. Things fall apart and must be put back together again. Our guest speaker this morning is the Reverend Connie Simon. I'm sure you'll all remember her. During her first year at Meadville Theological School, the Reverend Connie served as resident speaker here at UUFLB. She was co-ordained by the Unitarian Society of Germantown, where she did her internship, and the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia. She was called into ministry by the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati in 2018. Committed to supporting each of us, finding our inner divine, she describes her ministry as helping people heal from the inside out so they can do the outside in work our world so desperately needs. The title of her sermon today is Better Than Before. We are mired in political divisiveness that culminated in the storming of the U.S. Capitol a year ago and still continues today. The struggles for racial justice and economic equity continue. And of course, COVID still rages on. All we want is to get back to normal. But is that what we really want? What if we sought to be renewed and transformed into something even better than we were before? Now, let us enter into worship together. I'm very pleased to introduce our musician extraordinaire, Avi Wisnia.
Good morning. As we gather together, separated by the conditions of a pandemic, I want to start with the song that speaks to the theme of today's service, of not just getting back to normal, but getting back to something that is better than before, and hopefully what lies on the other side of this pandemic, something that Carole King refers to as a way over yonder. Way over yonder is a place that I know where I can find shelter from a hunger and cold, and the sweet taste in good life is so easily found sunshine and golden, shining right down on me. Then trouble's gonna lose me, worry leave me behind. I'll stand up proudly with true peace of mind. Maybe tomorrow I'll find my way to the land where the honey runs in rivers each day, and the sweet tasting good life is so easily found way over yonder. That's where I'm bound, and the sweet taste and good life is so easily found way over yonder. That's where I'm bound.
Thank you, Avi. That was really beautiful. As we light our chalice, feel free to join me as I read the chalice lighting words. We light this chalice on the brink of a new year, letting go of what has been, open and hopeful for what may come, renewed, restored, ready to live life fully anew. May we move forward with intention. Our opening words this morning are from the Reverend Paul Leroux. We gather in community to rest from our labors, to greet our neighbors, and to open our being to insight and intuition of that greater reality of which we are a part. May we find in our time together inspiration and renewal. May we touch the holy in each other and be touched by the graciousness of life. May we find here a calm peacefulness that will carry us through the days ahead. Now we have a really nice message for all ages.
Good morning. My name is Beck Stow, and our message for all ages today comes from the lyrics of the song Dos Oruguitas, or in English, Two Caterpillars, written by Lin-Manuel Miranda for Disney's Encanto. Two caterpillars in love and yearning spend every evening and morning learning to hold each other, their hunger burning, to navigate a world that turns and never stops turning, together in this world that turns and never stops turning. Two caterpillars against the weather, the wind grows colder, but they're together. They hold each other. No way of knowing, they're all they have for shelter, and something inside them is growing. They long to stay together, but something inside them is growing. Oh, caterpillars, don't you hold on too tight. Both of you know it's your time to grow, to fall apart, to reunite. Wonders await you just on the other side. Trust they'll be there and start to prepare the way for tomorrow. Two caterpillars, cocooned and waiting, each in their own world, anticipating what happens after the rearranging. and so afraid of change in a world that never stops changing. So let the walls come down. The world will never stop changing, never stop changing. Oh, butterflies, don't you hold on too tight. Both of you know it's your time to go, to fly apart, to reunite. Wonders surround you, just let the walls come down. Don't look behind you, fly till you find your way toward tomorrow.
Thank you, Bex. What a beautiful story. Just don't be afraid to change. Don't hang on to the old. For our interlude this morning, Avi has chosen a really great song by Coldplay.
When you try your best but you don't succeed. When you get what you want but not what you need. When you feel so tired you cannot sleep. Stuck in reverse. And the tears come streaming down your face. When you lose something you can't replace. When you love someone but it goes to waste. Could it be worse? Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. And high up above or down below, when you're too in love to let it go. But if you never try, you'll never know just what you're worth. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you. Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones. I will try. I will try to fix you.
Thank you, Avi. That was really beautiful. Now I'm very pleased to introduce the Reverend Connie Simon for her reading.
Our reading is called Portal by Emily Wright Magoon. It's included in the Shelter in This Place collection of meditations edited by Meg Riley. It begins with a quote from Arundhati Roy. The pandemic is a portal. Has this ever happened to you? You move from where you are to get something in the next room. Maybe you're looking for the TV remote or about to make a snack. You walk through the doorway and suddenly you've completely forgotten what you were looking for. Psychologists call this the doorway effect. Walking through open doors, crossing a threshold, resets the memory to make room for the creation of a new episode. We are currently passing through many doorways. We are facing a pandemic unseen in any of our lifetimes. We are deepening our reckoning with our country's history of slavery and colonization, of white supremacy and the devaluing of Black and brown lives. In your personal life, you may also be moving across a threshold: the death of a loved one, the loss of a job, a diagnosis, a searching question. The key concept in the doorway effect is to make room. As we move over the threshold that reset jars us, making space to leave behind our outworn ideas and practices and birth something new. But that possibility is only available to us if we are open to it. Change is something that happens to us, but transition and transformation, those are internal and relational. Unless we make room for something new, unless we allow ourselves to be reoriented, no real change happens. We just find the remote and go back to our show. To cross that threshold, ready for transformation, what in us, in our lives, in our relationships, in our world needs to shift? Let us cross this threshold ready to reckon with our country's legacy of brutality and white supremacy, ready to rumble with deep change, ready to radically reorient our world into a place where interdependence is not taken for granted or squandered. Don't just grab the remote. Let's move through the portal instead.
Thank you, Connie. That's a very timely message, considering tomorrow is Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration. So, and portal or the doorway effect can certainly relate to that. Our split plate offering for the month of January is the Advocates for Homeless and Those in Need's Code Blue program. The nights are dangerously cold now in the days, and Code Blue is operating in Bucks County. This operation is one of the arms of the AHTN. The program houses the homeless here in Bucks County during nights when the temperatures are life-threatening. They do it with a lot of support. A bus picks up those who show up to one of 4 designated stops and takes them to one of 2 churches that have allowed their sacred spaces to be used during this season. Code Blue operates from December through May with help from many volunteers, including our very own Rich Kelly. If you want more information, please visit their website at ahtn.org or feel free to talk with Rich. This is a very worthwhile cause, literally saving lives, so please be generous. And as always, you can donate using our e-newsletter or the website. And now Connie will give her sermon, Better Than Before.
This time last year, how many of you were thinking how happy you were that 2020 was over? 2020 was, 2020 was, politically, socially, and economically. There were memes everywhere about 2020 being the worst year ever. We couldn't wait to get out of it. And 2021, it didn't turn out exactly the way we'd hoped that it would. Right after Christmas last year, I bought New Year's cards that said, "It's 2021. What could possibly go wrong?" And then it did. Thousands of people died as COVID raged in the first week of the new year last year. The political division in Washington continued as baseless charges of election fraud devolved into violence on the steps and in the very halls of the Capitol building. This past August, I was laughing with a friend about how we couldn't wait for 2020 to end. He said it was like 2021 told 2020, here, hold my drink. I didn't send those cards I bought. It's been a rough couple years. Around the globe, more than 290 million people have been diagnosed with the coronavirus. 55 million cases so far here in the United States, with over 800,000 dead. We know people who were sick. We know people who died. We've had several cases in my own family, and I lost my beloved brother-in-law to COVID in April. Almost none of us has been untouched by COVID. For a while, we stayed home. Stores, restaurants, schools, and businesses closed. We stopped going out to eat. We stopped traveling. We stopped spending time with our friends. We got used to working from home and grocery deliveries. We baked bread and tried new recipes. We cleaned out our closets and rearranged the furniture. Our kids learned online instead of in the classroom. Professional sports, concerts, and live performances were canceled. Congregations closed to in-person worship. Now, more things are open today, but it's still not like it was. We wonder, when will things get back to normal? That's the question I hear most often as a UU minister. When can we come back to church the way it was? When can we be together again completely? When can our lives go back to normal? Honestly, I don't know. A parade of variants marching through the Greek alphabet, most prominently Delta and Omicron, continue to plague us. We just want things to go back to normal. We monitor with hope the daily vaccine counts and hang on Dr. Fauci's every word. But even he doesn't know everything. Last summer, he said, I hope by the time we get to the end of the summer, the beginning of the fall, we'll be very close to what we would consider normal. It didn't work out that way. And there's that word again, normal. Youth Reach Houston founder and executive director Kurt Williams says that when we talk about normal, what we are really yearning for is not necessarily normality, but we want our conveniences and our diversions back. Exactly. We want to be comfortable. I'll tell you, I'm tired of wearing a mask everywhere I go. I want to take a trip, go to the movies, see my friends safely without having to worry about infection. I want to shake hands and hug people freely again. You know, normal stuff. The loneliness and isolation of the last 2 years has been devastating for so many people. And as hard as it's been, COVID has brought some unexpected blessings to us. We were able to slow down, to step off the treadmill of go, 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 and take time to rediscover what and who is important to us, and to reground ourselves spiritually. With fewer diversions and demands for our attention, many of us had time for introspection and personal reflection. We couldn't see our friends or do activities with them, but we were able to find new ways to connect and to engage in some of those activities. Book clubs, wine tasting, concerts, graduations, and even holiday dinners moved online. We wrote letters again. We talked on the phone again, taking the opportunity to reach out to and reconnect with folks we haven't spoken to in years. If going back to normal means losing that creativity and connection, I say no thanks. Because of COVID, we confronted the question of just who is an essential worker. Grocery store clerks, trash collectors, delivery drivers, and custodians became essential workers during the pandemic. Remember how folks were thanking the checkers in the grocery store and leaving treats for Amazon drivers early on in the pandemic? I'd like to think it's because we suddenly realized the value of their work, But I suspect that for many of us, it was only a temporary recognition, not of the individuals doing the work, but of the degree to which their work contributes to our comfort and convenience. So if going back to normal means those folks become invisible to us again, I say no thanks. COVID exposed the racial and economic injustice entrenched in our society. We see the disparities in our healthcare system just blow up. People of color are more likely to die from COVID because they disproportionately work jobs where they don't have the luxury of working from home. They're less likely to have adequate savings to cover lost wages. Their children are less likely to have access to the equipment and internet required for online learning. They're less likely to have access to adequate health care. We're finally hearing more discussion about these issues. Federal, state, and local governments are struggling to find ways to make health care, starting with the COVID vaccine, accessible to those who otherwise would not have access. It's a start, but there is much more work to do. So if going back to normal means going back to a time when only those with privilege and economic means receive the care they need, and going back to a time when we just assume everyone has access to broadband services and to health care, I say no thanks. BC, before COVID, we knew there was racism in this country. We knew it. But we saw it on full display with the killing of George Floyd. And it pains me to say it, but people paid attention then. They couldn't escape it. We all saw the footage over and over and over again. With businesses closed and many people out of work, protesters were more able to take to the streets. They were more desperate, more rage-filled, more just, I don't even know the word for it. The feelings were there and overwhelming. People needed to take to the streets. They needed to have their voices heard. We saw how low we'd sunk in terms of political division with the storming of the Capitol, January 6th, a year ago. We saw vicious and disgusting attacks on Asian Americans who were somehow blamed for the coronavirus. The racism and the political discord were there before, but now, because of COVID, now all of a sudden, couldn't look away. We had to see it. We had to confront it. We had to acknowledge it. And well, maybe not everybody did, but it was right there in our faces. It's still right there in our faces. If going back to normal means we go back to pretending we don't see this stuff, then I say no thanks. There are a lot of things I miss from the time before COVID, and there are some things I hope we leave behind us. So when people say they're anxious to get back to normal, I say, no way. Personally, I don't want to go back. I want to go forward. I want things to be better, to be renewed. I want to do better. I want to be renewed and be a better person. We're uncovering some things about our society here. We're seeing up close just how deeply ingrained in white supremacy culture we are. We've seen the economic injustice in our society. And folks, we can't unsee these things. We have to keep working on them. We have to keep moving forward. We can't let ourselves go back to where we were. No way. And I want the same thing for our congregations and for Unitarian Universalism. Before COVID, we didn't all have ways for those who weren't able to come to our buildings to participate in our services. Now we have people from all over the country and all over the world watching from home on YouTube and Zoom and Facebook Live. Several of my colleagues share stories of innovative ways they're using technology to be more inclusive. And yes, it happened because of COVID, but the truth is, we've needed to do this for a long time now. Inclusion work is justice work. We're finally beginning to let go of perfectionism and the way it's always been. We're finally becoming more nimble and creative. In fact, I'm only able to be with you today because I can do so virtually. What a blessing. The truth is, I'm just as eager as you to be together again. I'd love to see you all, to come back to UU Fellowship of Lower Bucks and share a handshake and a hug and a laugh and a cup of coffee in person with you all. I miss seeing folks. I miss traveling. I miss my friends. I'm looking forward to all of those things. But do I want to go back to normal? No way.
Thank you, Reverend Connie, for that very moving and powerful message. You've certainly given us a lot to think about. And now is the time in our service when we recognize one another and lift up one another in love. So let us be fully present and listen with open hearts. As always, if you wish to share a joy or a sorrow, please click on the Zoom reactions and then click raise hand. And that will help us to find you, and then you will be able to unmute yourself. So, for everyone's benefit, as always, please be brief. And Robin, you have your hand up?
Yeah, kind of. It's actually Bill. Hey there. So the joy that I had is actually about this congregation. So Rich had reached out to me, just kind of looking for the address for the Bucks County suicide prevention, and I needed to go actually to find the address so we knew where to send the funds. And I reached out to Diane Marseglia, our county commissioner, and she was thrilled that we had done that. And so we got thanks from the county commissioners by way of Diane. And I just wanted to share that with everybody today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Well,
Bill and Mary
Jane
Jane.
is waving her hand.
Okay, they should be able
Connie
to.
Simon, am I here? Connie Simon said what I've been fiercely thinking and feeling. I want to do something, and I think Bill Appleton can help me.
Who did it sent the list?
He was supposed to make a list, yes. But I need to do something, and here I am in my old body, and I can't go out and do things, but I can write and do write. And I want to have something to change, not going back, as Connie Simon said, to the past, but into the future, especially with voting. That's my number one thing. So, Bill, I need a phone number.
You sent it. I gave it to November.
Anyway, that's my fierce feeling.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Jane.
Anybody else? Oh, Joanna.
Good morning, everyone. I had a small joy this morning that I wanted to share. I listened to an episode of Hidden Brain, and I don't know if you guys have heard of Hidden Brain. It's a podcast that's available, and you can hear it on NPR. They actually play them on Saturdays, but it was about not going back. It was about addressing racism in our culture, in our society. And it was very powerful, and it, especially at this time of year in the celebration of Martin Luther King, it just felt very appropriate. So I highly encourage you to look for Monday's episode of Hidden Brain, and it talks about change and how we can make change for difficult things. So it was very joyful to have that laid out in a way that was accessible.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'll have to check it out. Maybe we could steal that and use it as a sermon.
I think that's it.
All right. Well,
Wait,
Gloria, let us do something here.
Okay.
All right. You should be able to unmute, Gloria.
Yes, I think I did.
Yep.
Yesterday, I listened to my first podcast, and it was by a speaker on MSNBC. His first name is Amen. I can't pronounce his last name. And it was about the young woman that was that died on January 6th. And after all his research and his team, it has been found that she died of a drug overdose. She was not killed by the police, as has been reported. She was dead when she fell down, and nobody, could get her up again. So I thought that was very interesting. She had, and also this is important. If anybody has any family members in rehab, which I sometimes do, this is where QAnon recruits followers, because these people are looking for a new way to be in the world, for change, they're vulnerable. Let's say they're very vulnerable at this stage. And this is where they found this young woman. She was radicalized by being encouraged in the rehab she was going to. So that's something we should be aware of.
That is very interesting. I did not know that. Thank you for sharing that, Gloria. All right, I think we'll move on. We always have time after our service for coffee hour for conversation. But whether or not you shared this morning for your joys, we in this community join you in celebration. And for any sorrows or concerns, may you feel our sympathy and our compassion. So let's pause for just a moment of silent meditation, gratitude, and prayer. For our closing song, Avi has picked out a really nice one.
Please join me in our closing hymn, number 118, This Little Light of Mine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, 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 let it shine.
Thank you, Avi. Can always count on you to liven things up. So please feel free to join me as I read our closing words and we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. So our service is now concluded. Please feel welcome to stay for our very informal coffee hour. And you should be able to unmute yourself now and to use the chat function. And if you want to see everybody's shining faces, put it back into gallery view. And I would